Hey, welcome back everyone to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 169. I'm here with my co-facilitator, Lino.
Hello, everyone. How you all doing today? How you doing today, Mike?
Oh, good brother yourself.
I am well.
All right. For those, all right, make sure I fix this. All right. So please hit the like button as you come in. Share the video if possible. Hit that notification bell so you get all the updates. And there's a docket in the description beneath the video. You can use that to follow along. Share my screen and we'll get started. All right. So first item on the docket is from arstechnica.com. Florida utility to close natural gas plants, build massive solar powered battery. It's a picture of the solar field right there. On Thursday, Florida Power and Light (FPL) announced that it would retire two natural gas plants and replace those plants with what is likely to be the world's largest solar powered battery bank when it's completed in 2021. FPL, a subsidiary of Next Era Energy, serves approximately 10 million customers in Florida. The utility says its plan, including additional efficiency upgrades and smaller battery installations throughout its service area, will save customers more than $100 million in aggregate through avoided fuel costs. FPL also says its battery and upgrade plan will help avoid 1 million tons of carbon dioxide emissions. The plan calls for the construction of a 409 megawatt, 900 megawatt hour battery installation at what will be called the FPL Manatee Energy Storage Center. For context, the largest battery installation in the world was built by Tesla at a Hornsdale wind farm in South Australia. That has that has a capacity and power rating of 100 megawatt, 129 megawatt per hour. The batteries will be charged by an existing solar plant in Manatee County, FPL said. Being able to store solar power in batteries is a huge advantage in the utility. Solar photovoltaic panels are intermittent sources of energy because they only produce power when the sun is shining. Generally, generally that happens in the morning and toward the middle of the day when power demand tends to be low. If a utility can store excess power in the bank of the batteries, it can deploy that electricity later in the afternoon when people return home from work and turn on their air conditioners, running up electricity demand. FPL did not state which company would provide its batteries, how much it would pay for them, or whether they would be lithium-ion batteries or use another chemistry. Lithium-ion batteries are currently the favorite of grid-scale chemical battery systems. The however, this week, an analyst firm Bloomberg New Energy Finance wrote that the cost of lithium-ion batteries has fallen by 35% since the first half of 2018. That's amazing. What do you think about this, Lino?
These states are there in tropical climates. The southern
Mm.
states, east to west, they are s- suited to use renewable energies to offset the current energy they use now. So it's a win-win for them, especially with the low cost of setting up this infrastructure. Florida is the most southernmost state from top to bottom, north to south. It's sunny. It's called the Sunshine State, and they are in a prime geographical location to utilize all that sun. So it's
Mhm.
kind of like, well, how come you haven't done it already? Type of situation. It's good for them. It's good for Florida. Now, the article also pointed out when people come on and turn the AC on, the next step I can see, I'm not saying I foresee, but I can see is people, the next major step is people designing homes that will allow them not to use air conditioning to the point they're used now. You see that in these Caribbean islands a lot. But this is a great first step for Florida, utilizing their position to the sun to give them energy to offset their need for the current energy they're using now.
Yeah, that's a big, massive infrastructure upgrade. So I haven't been to Florida before, but I have coworkers who do work down there. And they tell me all the time about how they just run their ACs all day long. And I'm like, you couldn't do that in Boston.
Yeah, when I was down there, at certain times of the year, I was down there at different times of the year, off and on, and it gets hot. It feels like it's 90. Well, the temperature is 95, but it feels like something else. So people are in them hotels, like on South Beach, AC running all day long, and them hotels hold a lot of people. And then you're out in the areas, the living areas, such as the cities and the towns. You have a lot of elderly people down there, so they run in their AC all the time. You have resorts, they run the AC all the time. So, yeah,
All right, let's jump to the next one. What's the
hey
hottest
Google,
place down there, if you don't mind me asking?
I oh my bad, I had the thing on. Man, I was I was down in August. It was like 100 plus every day I was there. It was like 103. And it reached that early in the day, you know,
Is
because
it
like
is it muggy, or is it you feel the breeze off the water?
you can feel the breeze off the water. It depends on where you're at downtown because no, downtown heat is hotter because of the concrete. But if you're in an open area, you can feel the breeze.
Hmm. All right, let me get to this next one. This one is from medicalnewstoday.com. Using artificial intelligence to predict mortality. An increasing amount of recent research is suggesting that computer algorithms and artificial intelligence learning can prove highly useful in medical world. For instance, a study that appeared a few months ago found that deep learning algorithms can accurately predict the onset of Alzheimer's disease as early as 6 years in advance. Using using so-called training data set, deep learning algorithms can teach themselves to predict if and when an event is likely to occur. Hey, how are you doing? Now, researchers have set out to examine whether machine learning can accurately predict pre- premature mortality due to chronic disease. Stephen Wang, who is an assistant professor of epidemiology and data science at the University of Nottingham in the United Kingdom, led the new research. Wang and colleagues examined health data on more than half a million people between the ages of 40 and 69 years old. The participants had registered with the UK Biobank study between 2006 and 2010. The UK Biobank study researchers clinically followed the participants until 2016. For the current study, Wang and team developed a system of learning algorithms using two models called random forest and deep learning. They use models to predict the risk of premature death due to chronic disease. The scientists examined the predictive accuracy of these models and compared them with conventional prediction models such as Cox regression analysis and multivariate Cox model. This is this is a common use case for AI and deep learning. And what happens when you have lots and lots of data in the medical field, especially in the science field, because you're constantly running evaluations. In the medical field, you have all of these patients. One hospital can have a million records generated over its course of its lifespan. 20 plus year lifespan. Because you have dental, and then you have traditional general medicine, and then you have all types of research programs and stuff that's involved in this. And all of that data goes inside of a data lake. Once that data lake gets filled up, the artificial intelligence, once you point out what you're looking for, that artificial intelligence is going to aggregate all of that data, and it's going to create its own scientific models on its own.
Now, this sounds like this to be good for insurance companies also, but to point out what you're just saying, it seems like this AI goes perfectly hand in hand with blockchain, because you were talking about dental, normal physician checkups, things like that, and it's an up-to-date record of that patient throughout the years that they visit the hospital for anything. So now you have this AI that's continuously looking at this up-to-date record instead of going into a data lake and analyzing different data sets from that data lake. Now you have this up-to-date record or ledger, or I'm pretty sure at that point a ledger would be referred to as a record, and you will continuously have up-to-date information on these patients, on patients, and doctors will continue to have a more, because with doctors have what, a 15 minutes to talk to you, that type of deal. So with this, they'll have more relevant information, up-to-date information to what's the word I'm looking for here? To give advice or anything else that they may talk to you about. And it's easier to go into the history.
Yeah, and a lot of people think that, well, AI is going to replace doctors. It's not so much that AI is going to replace doctors; it's that AI is going to be used as a scalpel, so to speak, for doctors, because now they can get precise um, um, predictions out of the AI, out of the artificial intelligence, with the data that's already been aggregated, because the data belongs to them, right? It's not like, oh, well, it's just some random guy on the street who gave them some information, then they added that to the database. No, this is what they're evaluating people for, based on weight, based on age, based on race, based on gender. All of that data gets aggregated every time a patient comes into general medicine, and then once you triage that patient, whether they come from ER or they come from another wing of the cardiovascular, other areas of the medical practice, all that information gets gathered up. That requires a whole lot of horsepower, because it has
And
to sift through that data. I work in, when I do my analysis with machine learning in security, in cybersecurity, and I have to comb through the logs. That can take, maybe, it depending on how far back I want to go. If I went back 6 months in logs, in data logs, that can take me an hour or so, if not longer. And that's with the fastest computers. So I can only imagine what they're doing with you know the information that they have, the data that they have. Hey, what's
now
going
I
on, Nicole, Ali?
now I would imagine the next step is a voice, some type of voice questions. You ask the AI, when was the last time this person this hit this done or came here, and it'll then give you, look into the records and then give you that precise information instead of you sitting down and looking into it.
Well, it's not voice based. It's actually application based. So if it say you went for an MRI, it's going to leverage your information that's already standard versus other people who have MRIs, and the prediction of people who match same gender, same race, same, you know what I'm saying? It's gonna do that, all that on its own. You don't have to tell it to do anything. And especially the dental piece, right? So let's say, a person got sick. Well, what's the variable that's in there? Well, person had a cavity. Well, how many people who had cavities during that time, or how many people have cavities during that during the research actually had the same condition? That's where artificial intelligence comes in, and that's where your deep learning models come in, and analysis comes in. So all right, let me get to this next one. All right, this next one is from technologyreview.com, MIT. If you're thinking about embracing AI, just jump in. Are you a company executive who, who fancies adopting AI in your business but feels overwhelmed at the prospect? Then Andrew Ng, former founder of Google Brain and chief scientist at Baidu, has some advice for you. Jump in. It's it's a big journey, he said on the MTech digital stage, MIT MIT Technology Review annual AI conference. But jumping in is not hard. Inge is now the founder and chief executive of Landon AI, a venture dedicated to helping companies without the resources and know-how of traditional tech companies to participate in AI revolution. It is those companies outside the AI industry, such as retail, logistics, or transportation, that stand to benefit from the increased efficiency and unlock potential that machine learning applications provide, Inge said. But he understands that it can be hard. We are we are here to help companies do a very difficult but very valuable thing, he said. How to jump in. Eng advises starting small. Begin with a pilot project that requires only one or two engineers. Set realistic expectations for what AI can and can't do, and focus on scoring quick wins. Not only does this strategy help an organization quickly understand what it would take to continue investing in AI, but it will also help secure buy in from higher level executives. The best way to succeed in AI adoption, he said, is to have support from all levels of an organization. He is true. That is very true. Inge also shared his excitement about future advancements in AI and what they will mean for businesses. For example, training deep learning models on small data sets, 100 data points or less, could open AI adoption up to a lot of businesses, such as healthcare. We just talked about that. That might have much less data to work with than large tech platforms. See, this makes a lot of sense, and I agree. I agree with him 100% that um, jumping into AI, it is a bit murky in terms of where do you start, right? You have data, but how do you address the data that you have, and correlate that with artificial intelligence and deep learning? So you got to. I agree with him 100%. You got to start with a small data set, and it could be something as simple as who's coming to your website, what kind of browsers are they using, what kind of device are they using, right? So are they using iPhone? Are they using Android? Are they using Chrome? Are they using Firefox? Or are they using Safari? Um, which the version of the device is it the iPhone 10 or the XR, or are they still using 7? Um, are they using the Android? And if they are using the Android, are they using the Samsung, or are they using um, LG or a Google phone? This those are critical. Not so much as critical data points, but that's a starting place for most organizations from a edge standpoint.
Mm, okay. Yeah, I don't have nothing on this one. I'll just go with what you said on this one. But you know what? I will say, yeah, artificial intelligence. It's right now. It's so much like IoT. where there's no definitive um, application. It's for everything.
Hmm.
So with that, all data can be used. Well, the data that you gather can be used for a multitude of things. It will have to
Hmm.
be a sense where you'll have to be in the field to then be in the field of artificial intelligence for some time to then get a feel of what you really want to do.
Well, the great thing about artificial intelligence is that, at least right now, there's so much support for it. There's so many places you can go online or offline. If you got Meetup, if you got an Android phone or iOS phone, you can download the app Meetup. There's a lot of artificial intelligence meetups that have been created the last few months. There's conferences in New York that's happening, I think next week or something like that, or next 2 weeks, something like that, for Artificial Intelligence Con. Um, and then you have things like Udacity, like what I'm showing right now is School of Artificial Intelligence. You can get your nano degree in this now, right? So, nano degree programs starting soon. Deep learning, natural language processing, NLP, machine learning engineer,
And they're
and artificial intelligence.
and they're always adding new classes, and the classes that they have start almost every week.
Hmm. Right. In your step one is AI programming with Python. It's a beginner class. And then step two is machine learning engineer. Learn all the concepts of machine learning. In step three, data structures and algorithms. You know that's pretty straightforward. Once you knock out step one, you're pretty much ready for step two, in my opinion.
Hmm.
As long as you follow the syllabus or the silly bus, for what it's worth. Um, let me uh, let me go on Indeed. Go Chicago. See Boogie, what's going on?
Hello, hello, all. Hello, how's everyone doing today? Nice day today.
Right. So we can look in the corner right here, and we can see, um, in Chicago, the city of Chicago, entry level jobs starting at 85 grand
Mm,
for artificial intelligence.
that's nice. That's nice right there. And we still on the
Yeah.
ground floor
Hmm.
of this stuff.
Yeah. Let me pull this back up right here.
Peace, brothers.
Oh, what's going
Hey, what's
on?
going on, Jack?
What's going on, Jack?
Not much going on, brothers.
Hmm.
My question to this is that okay? We look at in terms of AI. Right now it seems like it's the push is more the foundation is more based in transportation, healthcare. Um, do seeing what China's doing right now. You have security, right? As far as policing, so everything evolves off itself. So, what do you think AI is going to go to next? Because it's like where other than healthcare and all these other um specific areas, like where can it springboard off to next? Like, what do you foresee it?
Hey, Blank, are you there?
My connection just dropped. Can anybody hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I missed the question. What was the question?
Um. Again, I was gonna say like seeing where AI stands at, right? AI is pretty much pushed towards healthcare, transportation, especially what they're doing in China, security. So right now, everything in technology, everything evolves of itself. So where is AI gonna go next, in the future? Because uh, or it like where's it gonna go next? Where's it gonna go into like, or is it gonna break apart from certain specific areas like transportation? Because I only can see it going so far. So what do you foresee it next?
Well, you have to remember that AI is more of a personal tool. It's not. I shouldn't say personal tool, but it's actual emerging tool, right, for technology. You can use AI in just about everything now. Anything that's connected to the network or connected to a network and generates logs or generates data, that's pretty much where AI is going to come in. I mean, like the previous article was talking about, you got to start small. So if you're a chip company like Frito Lay's or something like that, you might want to know how many people are buying 50 cents bags of chips versus buying a dollar bag of chips, and in what area are they doing it, and at what time, or in what's the age demographic, right? What's the racial demographic? What's the racial makeup? Um, how frequently are they doing? What's the best season to sell those chips? There's a whole lot of ways that you can go with those data points, and as long as you have some form of data points to work with, as long as you have at least 10 data points to work with, you can actually leverage AI to your advantage.
I didn't know that. So a lot of businesses can kind of uh, utilize this type of technology just for more profits. I didn't think about that. So
Well, it gives you more. It gives you more precision. More precision.
so pretty much it helps them to see their consumer base. So that's more for business. I understand that. So um now seeing, okay, I see like you have these websites, like Udacity, edX are giving out degrees in specific areas in AI. When do you think they're gonna kind of kind of like transform this and push it more into traditional universities? Because I don't really see anything. Or I see maybe MIT, but I don't see any other schools really pushing AI, STEM
Just
based degrees.
just about every Division 1, Division 2 school has an AI program.
Okay.
They were using AI before it was even branded, right? So they were already doing the legwork, the heavy lifting for the algorithms to create AI. So they are somewhat parallel with where the transition is taking place.
So they're the ones who did most of the investing in R&D in it. So pretty much. So is that how it works? That these corporations are going to go to them for assistance in creating AI based models for sales, or is it going to be people going to start creating more private companies, right? Because I guess right now we're in a foundational stage, right? So is it the opportunities for more for people to create private companies, small companies, based companies that kind of like uh, that are like experts in this type of technology and know how to help companies creatively, use this technology to like create profits. Like, is that where the niche is going to be going? Because I know we're discussing like people working for companies, but it's always better to be a business owner. So it's like, you think that's where the opportunity is at right now?
It's becoming more of a gig-based economy. So now you're seeing a whole lot of startups come out of these emerging pieces of tech, such as artificial intelligence, machine learning, and autonomous vehicles. All of these applications require these sort of tools. So that's where it's coming from, and you can go to various amount of places online and learn about it. I mean, there's so many places, in, in major tech hubs. Boston, New York, um, Raleigh, North Carolina, because they got Duke University, UNC, all the major universities down there, and got the best of the best human capital to offer. That's involved in that. Atlanta's another tech hub. Um, Same thing with Texas now. Texas is a huge tech hub because a lot of companies from Silicon Valley actually are racing to Texas for the tax benefits, so they're setting up shop down there. It's one of those things where you just have to kind of have a clear vision of what it is that you're trying to do business wise, and try to figure out a way to integrate. those sort of emerging tools into your portfolio. If you're a marketing company, AI is the right weapon against your, not just for your personal advancement, but for also your competition. If you got a leg up on your competition, now you can get a better marketing strategy off the ground. So
That's great stuff.
yes, sir. All right, next one is from InterestingEngineering.com. Boston Dynamics releases video of Handle, a new warehouse work robot. Boston Dynamics, famous for their door opening robotic dogs and jogging bipedal robots, introduced Handle, their new warehouse work robot, today in the video posted on YouTube. According to Boston Dynamics, Handle is a mobile manipulation robot designed for logistics. Handle autonomously performs mixed skew pallet building and depalletization depalletizing after initialization and localizing against the pallets. The onboard vision system on Handle tracks the marked pallets for navigation and finds individual boxes for grasping and placing. In the video, you can see that unlike its earlier robots, Handle is wheeled rather than legged. A wheeled robot in a warehouse environment is obviously the best choice since it makes the work of the robot simpler. Since the machine also has to balance a heavy load suspended overhead at the end of its arm. So I just want to play the video real quick. I know you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, this is going to threaten a lot of people's jobs, the low-hanging fruit jobs, the repetitive jobs, and those are the jobs we've always said will be the first to be affected by the first round of robots and artificial intelligence. Those low-hanging repetitive jobs, and this is it. Only thing they're doing is picking boxes from one place and putting them to the next with efficiency. Well, with efficiency, and even leaving the door open for even better efficiency. You don't have to pay them a $15 an hour wage job, and on top of that, you don't have to pay multiple, 3 or 4 or 5 of them, 15 hours, $15 an hour wage jobs. You can set up 2 or 3, and they may do the job of 4 and 6 people.
Hmm.
So I see these threatening the jobs of lower repetitive, lower skilled workers.
Yeah, Ronnie Holmes in the chat says for places like Target and Walmart, this knocks out the backroom team members. Those guys who are you know, sitting on Instagram and when it's downtime, I don't know. Got to think about your future because some two-wheel robot's gonna come in there and put you out of business.
And these companies are worried about their bottom line, these public companies. And if they have a way that will improve their bottom line, then they're going to listen. and they may do more than listen.
Hmm.
Now you have time to skill yourself before it really takes effect. But even since this show has started, when we talked about the different times we talked about Boston Dynamics, they have made leaps and bounds of improvements in their robots, and we only been on the air barely a year.
Hmm. Jack, you have anything you want to add to this?
Yeah,
I think Jack might be driving.
I'm right here. I think this is very interesting because I think we read an article like sometime last year, uh, explaining what the push that I think it was Japan. It was Japan would have a big push for this, as far as using robotics and cutting costs, right? So I think they were able to reduce their labor costs by 60%. So, like if you're a company, a corporation that, you know, want to increase your bottom line, yeah, you're gonna go this direction, and they have to, right, to keep up with globalization. So, I think the best route for those people, those individuals who might lose their job, is kind of look more in the even if you like. I think the best route is mechanical. Like try to look at um, learn certain skills that you're able to repair these parts. Because if you have a Amazon warehouse, right, and those places are massive. There's always going to be need. There's always going to be breakdown. There's always going to be parts to be replaced on some of these robotics. And robots. So there's a great opportunity right there. But it's this. It all depends on the person if they're willing to sacrifice and take time to learn those skills. So um, I'm not sure where we learn robotic uh, was that robotic engineering or robotic, like what would that be?
Oh, that would that would be like computer engineering or computer electronics, and then it leads off then it leads off into the engineering aspect. So I mean, you can do some of this stuff at a community college or a trade school.
Okay,
Um,
okay.
you can also, I mean, it'd be difficult for you to do it online because you're not in a classroom environment where you're actually touching the physical robots and stuff of that nature. But that's something that we covered on Saturday in the hangout for Q-based satellites and Raspberry Pis. Um, we covered that NASA actually put the blueprints up for their rover. You can download that from the GitHub, and it'll cost you $2,500 to get your own robot up and going. So that's a starting place. That's ground zero.
And another thought, you have people coming to this country looking for jobs. After a while, those jobs that they may have occupied, those low hanging fruit jobs, will not be plentiful. What about that burden? You have these people that are not coming here looking for quote unquote asylum, not contributing to to this society. They're just here.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Um, I just want to kind of highlight what Jack was saying about they're going to need people to fix it. The thing is, when you buy these robots for for industrial Internet of Things, 'cause that's what those robots are in Amazon's warehouse from Kiva. Those robots are under warranty, so they always have some random guy is not going to come in and fix those robots. Those robots generate service intervals, and they're going to be taken offline, and then another one's going to replace them as soon as they come offline. So in that regard, I see the point that you're making, but the deeper aspect is that those most of those devices are covered under warranty. In places like GM and Ford and stuff like that, they shut down the plant for 2 weeks just for that reason that you mentioned for maintenance.
Yeah, I've seen that, but I know that those companies they might be under warranty, but they're gonna third party out those the repairs for the warranty. So there's other opportunities for somebody to create a small business that is primarily focuses on repairing
Mhm.
some of these these robots for these manufacturing companies. So because they usually that's how they. It's not like I don't think they specifically have their own people go out there because let's say it's in a certain city, right? They're gonna call a company in that city to who has a contract to go out and repair that. So the more the merrier. So I think in regards to that, the opportunity is there. It's just people need more information on where to get that information to get that type of skill. And so you're saying it's more community colleges because the thing is like hands-on repair. I don't like. I'm kind of like I'm more in the mechanic. I know a lot of people on the mechanic side of things, right? So like mechanics, technicians. I don't really see even in my area in South Florida. I don't really see the advertising, the kind of like the promotion of this type of field. So um, how do people make sure it's not too late? That's the thing. Like make sure it's not too late. They're not far behind in terms of grasping this opportunity. Like because they're gonna be a need. I think it's gonna be a boom and it's gonna be a need and it's gonna be like okay, we're gonna push people through it. They haven't been promoting it yet. That's all I'm saying. So um,
Well, when I first got into computers, I was into electronics, so did those trade schools still exist? And they're not plentiful, but they still exist. You just have to go out and actually search for one in your area. You have to understand the bare metal of electronics first. So you got to understand Ohm's law and ACDC and the math, the simple mathematics behind it. It's not like, oh well, I'm going to go to school and just put some wheels on a device and it's going to be robotics. No, it's not. There's a lot more that goes into that. And plus, you have Maker Faire now. Maker Faire is pretty popular across the country. It's in 4 different regions. Um, there's all those events are actually available for you to register and actually attend. Um, I would also add in, I think, it's either Uber or Lyft has a. Actually, Uber and Lyft actually helped create the Udacity program for autonomous vehicles and robotics. So
I didn't know that. So how
yeah,
much money is
yeah,
is being pumped into this field right now? Like because it seems like they're like
it's a
low
multi-billion-dollar
key.
field
Mm, so
because you have to factor in those robots are not cheap.
yeah.
Those robots are not cheap, but those companies like Amazon can afford to buy into those robots because, I mean, Amazon even they didn't even buy the robots. They bought the whole company, Kiva.
And
That's
to
where they got the robots from. So
and to add on what you're saying, Mike, when we talk about mining asteroids, and we went over articles where you can't readily send humans out there because of the dangers of space. They're going to send robots,
hmm
also dynamic type robots. So
hmm
that's even more work for people who choose to go into that type of field. That's a guaranteed 20 years, really 40 years at the least.
yeah. Now they're talking about the military aspect of robots. I mean, they just had a meeting this week or last week about the dangers of military robots in the field of warfare. They're trying to
Mhm.
prevent that.
You said they're trying to prevent. What mean trying to prevent that? Like why?
Because the robots, who's going to be liable if a robot gets hacked and it decides that it's going to go into a village and chop down a village with its 50 cal on board?
You're right. Hmm. I
Or
didn't
what
think about it
happens
that way.
when it fall? What happens when a terrorist climbs on the back of it and then hijacks it and brings it into their domain?
Mhm. And we already see that with the drones.
Or
Yeah,
what
yeah,
happens
they can bring down a
when
drone.
I was gonna say what
What's going on,
happens
Carlos?
when it what's going on, you guys? What
Mm,
happens when the robot makes decisions on its own impetus? Who's responsible?
Skynet.
Right, that's the question. Right, that's the question. Or it's malfunction because the algorithm there's a break in the algorithm somewhere. It can make a final decision, or it made a wrong decision based on poor intelligence. Right? artificial intelligence is based on data sets that's fed to it. If you give it a wrong data set or an inaccurate data set or an outdated data set, what happens when it goes down the wrong street or the wrong highway and it takes out a civilian, or it shoots back at its own operators. You got your marine grunts behind it, and it decides instead of shooting at the enemy, it's gonna have friendly fire. There's
Yeah,
a
that
whole
would
lot
be
of
bad
aspects that
news.
comes with this.
That'd be
Oh,
bad news.
absolutely. Let me
Elon
get this.
Musk has been warning. He's been warning about all of these, uh, all these scenarios. He's been sounding the alarm on this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Who?
Elon Musk.
Oh,
Well, I mean, he hangs out with Joe Rogan smoking.
yeah.
Nah.
But do you know the interesting thing about that? NASA, they temporarily suspended his security clearance over that.
Yeah, he's asking for it back.
That's a
Yeah,
political. I'm not going to get into that
it's
right now.
political because we just covered an article yesterday about NASA growing weed up in space. So I think they're being highly hypocritical right about now.
Oh, absolutely. Most of those guys at NASA, do a little bit of something, whether it's cannabis or drink. I mean, they drink. I don't even understand the logic behind that. And they got video
Yeah,
or social media of those guys drinking. So
yeah, liquor and cigarettes, no good.
yeah, yeah. Anyways, this one is from CoinTelegraph.com. Cybersecurity firm WiseKey launches blockchain-powered ID solution for IoT devices. Switzerland-based blockchain and cybersecurity firm WiseKey has launched a new blockchain-powered digital identity solution to protect Internet of Things (IoT) devices and their data. The news was announced in a WiseKey press release on March 29th. WiseKey focuses on secure authentication and identification solutions for people and smart objects by implementing a cryptographic tool called Root of Trust (ROT). WiseKey IoT claims to have an install base of over 1.5 billion secure microchips across virtually all IoT sectors, from connected carts and smart cities to drones and crypto tokens. ROT, Root of Trust, the press release claims, is currently embedded in 4 billion devices globally. The new solution, dubbed Sensors ID, will be issued under the WiseKey ROT and serve as a so-called strong digital identity solution that combines a blockchain platform with dual-factor authentication measures to better protect smart devices or smart device identities and their data transactions. Excuse me. I know you sent this in. What's your take on this?
Yeah, I know we talked in the past about IoT and how in the future a lot more applications, not applications, but devices are going to be connected to the internet. When we went over to CES a few months ago, we talked about how you have microwaves connected to the internet, refrigerators, toasters, coffee makers. All of these devices are being connected to the internet. And with that, people can hack these devices and have access into your personal house internet. Now, with this, what they're doing is what they're setting out to do is provide a secure provide a security layer on top of these IoT devices. IoT devices is anything that connects to the internet. It can be your car, it can
Hmm.
be just little things. Think of a lot of little things, and the examples I just gave, and they are connected to the internet, meaning they are susceptible to hacking. We just talked about how robots may get hacked. So this is just another security layer to secure these devices. And with this 5G rolling in, that means a lot of devices are going to be connected to the internet because the capabilities are going to be there. So
So
that's what this article spelled out to me when I heard it, when I
this would be
read it.
kind of like a. I know this. So this would kind of be like a VPN.
Sounds like it. It sounds like it.
Okay.
something where it's not easily hackable. I think they talked about cryptographic hashing in it also.
It's cipher based. That's all it is.
Yeah.
What's the difference
Wait,
from it being cipher based?
wait, say that again, Mike. What was it?
It's cipher based. It's like the like your Google Authenticator, that root of trust. So based on the numbers that the cryptographic numbers that's generating, that's how it connects. With IoT devices, they're pretty self, they're pretty autonomous, right? If you plug in, if you think about in a factory or something like that, where you have motors or in a nuclear facility, um, those devices that are now IoT based are pretty autonomous. They're not really, there's no human factor behind them. So what happens here is that they have to be able to do all those things on their own to authenticate. And the root of trust is where that comes in. The ROT is where it comes in.
Right. So that means
So as long
basically
as
all of those components, right, that operate like what you were talking about, they all have like their own MAC address and stuff like that. So if you were to run like a scanner, for example, you'd basically see each individual device with its own, basically with its own attributes for connectivity.
Yeah, with its
But
own hash.
right, okay,
it would have, yeah. The MAC address is hard coded, but the root of trust is different, right? It's a different layer. It happens at the application layer.
okay. So that's not going to be on the actual device then. I mean, the reason why I'm speaking to it is I literally got a bunch of like, you know what I do? I got the bird scooters here, and it runs on basically it's the same thing. It runs on an IoT platform. So I'm kind of framing it in how these things work here. So you're saying that that's going to be actually on the software side. It's not going to actually be on the device itself.
It's on the platform and software side. So
Right.
it happens at
Okay.
the application layer.
So it's like an application will create a hash for both the toaster to to connect to to use as an authentication. So whenever you
Not so much of a toaster. I wouldn't use a toaster, but I would say more about the door locks and the HVAC system that's connected to it.
right, so the application will
The
create a
data
hash.
centers. They think about a data center that has multiple doorways that need to be unlocked and locked, and how many how big their HVAC system is and how it's controlled, and how many controllers that are involved in the HVAC
Right.
itself, or the
Okay.
suppression system, the fire suppression system that's involved in that. All of those things will be IoT based, but they also can be hacked by some
Right,
Yep.
really red team operations. So that's where that root of trust comes in,
right. But what I'm
because
saying,
that's how Target was actually breached, was through the HVAC system.
what I'm saying, a hash will be created as a authentication to say, okay, this app has the keys, which will be the hash to activate or to
Yep,
have access to the HVAC.
yep,
Right. Okay.
Mhm.
And the
right,
app will create that hash, and therefore two things will connect through that hash.
right. And you can't supply chain attack it like the Americans and Israelis did when they did to Iran, right? The Stuxnet attack. That
Hmm.
that root of
Right.
trust
Right.
would prevent an attack like that from happening. What's going on, DE?
What's good? What's
What's
good,
going
Jay
on?
Charles?
What's going on? What's going on?
Hmm. All right, let me
Good
get this.
evening, everybody.
Hey, what's going on?
Okay, this is I gotta say this because from what I'm learning when it comes to in terms of you know content connectivity and certain things that are plugged into like 5G or into a network. I thought there was always a back door, right? Is there always a back door that anything can be hacked no matter how much security is placed or protocols are placed to assist with security? Isn't anything hackable regardless? Because there's always a back door, right?
Not so much as there's always. I mean, there's a back door, but it depends on what the level of attack is. If your attack surface, every attack surface has the ability to have a denial of service attack happen to it. That's one main threat vector that a cyber attack would take place. So a denial of service attack is basically too many attempts against the network or the network device itself, and it brings it down. It overwhelms it with too many requests. You could do that to just about any device, but if you have the right security policies and controls in place, and you can actually mitigate against something like that. But that's the most typical. After that, it's gonna, they're gonna step their game up against it if they really want to get you.
So it's just so it takes a team. It can't be just one single person. Like, I'm gonna hack this IoT network or infrastructure. No, it takes a whole team to do that. So the likelihood of that happening is, kind of like non-existent. Like, it's not, unless it's like something big, I guess that's Target. But you have something like a home, whatever. It's not like a whole team is gonna go ahead and attack. Like, I'm trying to figure. Okay, this was I'm trying to figure out. Like, they're trying to put these things in place, right? But are they ever going to be able to fully secure a hospital, something that's important as a hospital, or a government building? Are they able to really secure these locations?
I think it's about risk assessment, right? Like, depends on what's in your average home. That's going to determine the level of risk. Whether the value of the home. Hospitals are way more value. There's way more sensitive data, information, all that type of stuff. So the security measures would be beefed. I think for like just a home, there's a set level of protections for homes, and then they may even scale that based on the value of the homes, the valuables inside the home, the area. I think there's a number of factors that may come into play, but I would say that it's not going to be like a one application solution for the most part. I think there's going to be heightened levels of security measures for the application.
Yeah, I agree with what Complex is saying. I think he hit the nail on the head. It's about your risk appetite. How much are you willing to tolerate? How much impact can you afford?
Can I ask
you think about the average house? If you think about the average house has at least two door locks in its ingress area, right? You have a deadbolt, and then you have your doorknob lock. So now you have two layers of security there, and then you might have a screen door that you can actually lock. So now you have three factors of security there. So people have been practicing that level of security for quite some time from a home standpoint. Even in the workplace is even more strict. Go ahead, D.
Okay, if everything in my house is connected, would I put a separate security system in for the house itself, and then for external communication, like me, I have to open the door from outside. There's one set of security for the door itself, and then everything else on the inside that has a separate security system on it. Would that system work, or you have to have everything connected to one security system?
You mean a centrally managed system?
Yeah. Okay. How would I put it? Okay, say I'm using the password, right? I have two separate passwords for the security system inside the house, and a separate password for the door locks, for instance. That once I get into the house, then I have to use the other security system. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Depending on how complex your password is, would determine the security level of it. I mean, just because you have a password doesn't make you secure.
Right. What I'm saying is, yeah. Well, I got two security systems. you have to get past one, say the door lock, and then you have after
Mhm.
you get past the door lock, then you have to get past everything else also. There's a second one,
Yeah, a good.
and when you try the first one,
Yeah,
unless you get it past the first set of security, then the other one, when you try to get past the first set of security and you can't, and it blocks you, say after the third try, then the second security locks itself down that you can't get in at all.
can anybody hear me?
Yeah,
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 I hear you.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. I dropped out there for a second. I didn't hear anything that DE had said after. Did anybody answer him?
Well, I think DE, that's what you're speaking to is that would be, I would say, if in reference to what we were just speaking to, that would kind of be like a manual way of adding like layered security protections. That's one way to do it. The article that we had discussed, that's like a blockchain based solution to do exactly what you're talking about. You're basically adding security layers, right? So
Mm-hmm.
separating, right? So instead of like everything being connected to say like one platform, right? Like the doors are controlled by, let's say, one platform. All the internal stuff inside of your home is connected, through maybe say like a different VPN based channel, right? So it separates it. So those are different security measures right there. So if somebody try to run a scanner on your home, they're not going to see everything plugged into one pipe, if you will.
All right, we need to get to the next article. All right, this one is from CoinTelegraph.com again. Top U.S. energy provider Amerin eyes blockchain promise and clean energy boost. Major United States firm Amerin and Canadian software engineering solutions company Opus One Solutions will explore the potential use of blockchain technology. The participants announced news in a press release on March 28th. Amarin, which currently services around 2.4 million electric and 900,000 gas consumers, will examine blockchain as one of a range of options in its clean energy initiative. As of May 2018, our Amerin was listed among top U.S. gas and electric utility firms based on market value. Blockchain is set to feature in the firm's so-called transactive energy marketplace (TEM), a microgrid built using Opus One's technology to improve supply and demand ratios, identifying uh, the value local distributed energy resources (DER) can provide to our distribution systems and customers it serves, helps inform how and where customers should invest in clean renewable power. Ron Pate, Senior Vice President of Operations and Technical Services at subsidiary Amerin Illinois, commented in a press release. He continued, Transact- transactive energy markets will ensure that distributed energy resources are compensated appropriately for the services that they provide. The plans do
Hmm.
not yet explicitly state how Amerin plans to leverage blockchain, yet come as energy providers worldwide turn to tech to reshape their operations. Lionel, you sent this in. What's your take on this?
Yeah, this technology is allowing energy companies to be fit to the example you used earlier with the what was it, Fritos chips. It allows them to see with this information different precise data points that will help them sell their products better. Now with this energy, they're using this blockchain technology to help them use the energy they got, send the energy they got, and see what areas that they service need energy more, opposed to just sending out energy everywhere. They'll know that, okay, this area don't use as much energy, but this area does. So we'll divert the energy to here to prevent power outages and so forth. So now you're seeing energy companies use this technology to run their facilities more efficiently, and to reduce wasted energy. That's what this article said to me when I read it.
To add to that, Lionel, I can also see how a distributed ledger system just makes for open accounting of like energy credit, because it said transactive. That was the term that they used, right? Was it a transactive system, as they called it? So if you've got like solar panels on your home, and you're generating energy and selling it back to the grid, um, having a blockchain ledger that's tracking everything, it'll track it in real time and literally update things. I forgot how often these blockchains update themselves, but it just makes for a better ledger system. It makes for a better accounting system. It makes for all of that. Just it makes it all streamlined and allows you to do a whole lot more.
My bad, I was muted. Now that they may see they're saving energy, now they can maybe do something else, like you mentioned, with their energy, or with the money they're saving. Now they can maybe able to build out their facilities or invest in newer energies.
Well, it's like
The
the
fact that
article mentions, it so they can better and more accurately appropriate energy to where it needs to be.
Hmm.
they did not know what they were going to do with it is a sign that they were unaware of its capabilities.
So are we literally giving them ideas?
Maybe they need jobs. Maybe they need employees. But I mean, they're partnering with that Opus company for that
Yeah,
very reason, right? So
yeah,
um, it 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 can be tricky to figure out how to implement some of that emerging tech into your portfolio. Like I was saying earlier in the hangout, that you have to have a clear vision on what it
right,
is,
right.
and you need somebody what in the industry what we call a a change agent. Basically, somebody who can actually come in and have who has the foresight to see what's the usability aspect of a technology and actually help implement that into your portfolio, into your environment.
Yeah, they would need to like hire someone like an Andreas Antonopoulos. He's a person that would look your company up and down, dude, and basically give you like a to Z on how to blockchain your whole entire company. Like that dude's brilliant, man. I follow.
Mm-hmm.
If you guys check him out on YouTube.
Mm-hmm. All right, next one is from computerworld.com. Top 10 companies and cities for blockchain developers. Job search site Indeed has seen a 90% increase in Bitcoin, crypto, and blockchain job postings over the past year. The reason, according to experts, companies using the distributed ledger tech are moving from pilot programs to real world deployments. Blockchain jobs remain hot in the U.S., though some parts of the country are harder than others. According to new data from Austin-based job search site Indeed, there was 90% increase in blockchain, Bitcoin, and cryptocurrency job postings between February 2018 and 2019. 90% increase. And over the past 3 years, job postings for in those categories rose 4,000% in the share of job postings per million. Indeed, data shows while a, while a more than 4,000% increase might seem epic, context is everything. For example, the number of blockchain-related job postings on Indeed in February 2017 was 12 per million. That number rose to 88.4 per million this February. By comparison, the number of jobs for data scientists was 1,000 per million for postings in February. So while blockchain postings are growing fast, the overall number remain behind more established IT career choices. Still, the increase in job postings related to Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, and blockchain has risen steadily over the past 3 years and was particularly sharp during the past 2 months, according to Andrew Flowers. So let's go to the hardest places. The metropolitan areas that led for job postings in those fields, according to Indeed, were San Jose, Sunnyvale, Santa Clara, California; San Francisco, Oakland, Hayward, California; New York, Newark, New Jersey; uh, Jersey City, New York; New Jersey, Pennsylvania; Austin, Round Rock, Texas; Seattle, Tacoma, Bellevue, Washington; Chicago, Naperville, Elgin, Illinois, Indiana, and Wisconsin; Denver, Aurora, Lakewood, Colorado; Washington, Arlington, Alexandria, D.C., the DMV area; Boston, Cambridge, and Newton, Massachusetts, and New Hampshire; and Los Angeles, Long Beach, Anaheim, California. Let me see if the salaries are there. According to Indeed, the top 10 companies with the most job postings for Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, and blockchain-related jobs were Deloitte, IBM, KPMG, Ernst& Young, EY, Accenture, Cisco, JP Morgan Chase, Microsoft Conduit, and Consensus.
Those are all big names.
Well, it's important to understand that Deloitte, KPMG, EY are risk
Accenture.
consultancy firms too.
Yeah, Accenture
They do
also.
auditing.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So
Interesting.
Deloitte and KPMG also started their own consultancies for individuals, to get into some of these areas for auditing blockchain well, not auditing blockchain, but auditing for the fintech sector, because a lot of fintechs operate really
Mm-hmm.
different from traditional auditing. So there's no physical records for you to actually evaluate. All that stuff is in the cloud. So
Yeah, if you guys don't know, those companies that Mike mentioned, Deloitte, KPMG, EY, Accenture, that's the type of companies that he's referencing.
mhm. Lionel, what's your take on this?
Oh,
Well, as far as my area, I see that they are hiring for in my area also, 90, not 90%, but that also goes to show that these type of jobs are in demand and will continue to be in demand for the next couple of years because there's a shortage of people who have the skills to fulfill these positions.
Well, I mean, Lionel, that was the reason why I did want to point out the companies that are hiring. I mean, those aren't small companies, man. Those are big time companies right there.
Right, right. Especially Deloitte. Deloitte is an accounting firm.
Or they do accounting, tax, and auditing, right? So, but Lionel actually jumped into the blockchain sector at the right time. I think around this time last year he was kind of dabbling in it. Now he's 2 feet in. So
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun, and the more you learn, the more secondhand the knowledge will second nature. The knowledge will become.
let me ask you a question, Lionel. From your experience, from kind of like looking into it to immersing yourself into taking courses and learning about blockchain, um, what tips you have for other people who's interested in learning about it, but they feel like they might be behind. Like, what kind of tips can you give to people who wants to learn it as well? that will help.
Well, you okay. Well, you're not behind. It's still in the beginning stages. Um, when you go to the classes that we always talk about, the Udacity, the edX, just keep at it. It is a learning curve. Me, when I was learning about it, I looked at a lot of YouTube channels talking about it, and after a while, things started to sound redundant. And the first few things that sounded redundant, I looked up on Google to ask. I asked Google. Google is your friend. And after a while, a, a bit of clarity came through. And that allowed me to build up my knowledge base. And then I started to read articles pertaining to crypto because crypto used blockchain. And then my knowledge base became more. But the classes, take notes. Take notes, because when you take notes, it's like you're recording the information into your mind. On sites like edX, when they talk, pause the video, take notes, write it down verbatim, and that really helps you retain information, because a lot of those classes are at your own pace. And I would, Mike told me this, when you get up in the morning, dedicate hour and a half to studying and do that daily. And after a while, it just adds up. Don't worry about trying to learn everything at once, because you're trying to cram. Don't worry about that. Just take out an hour and a half a day, and after a while, your knowledge base is just going to build and build and build.
And I would say one other thing too is like while you're studying these things, like have an idea of what you have an intention of applying it to. And so what'll start to happen is that you'll start to think of things in terms of blockchain, right? Like if you wanted to apply it to rocketry, for example, or you wanted to apply it to whatever it is, as you learn it, you think about it in a certain context, apply it to something, and then your brain starts to think in these concepts. And then so as you start to learn things, you're going to actually use what you learn and then add to that imaginary idea of how you would apply it. And that's what helps. Like just, I think sometimes like when we learn stuff, we don't have a context that we're applying it to. Um, like if you just learning math on its own is, okay, if you have the patience to sit down and learn it, sure. But if you could learn it while doing something, it makes it easier for it to stick. Right. So if like for me, for example, like, if I learn it in the context of what I like to do, which is racing and stuff. So everything is all about numbers. If I apply mathematical concepts in a setting that, that I can visually imagine it, apply it to, then it makes it easier for me to grasp it and understand it, and then also think in the concepts. So that's always important too when you're learning these types of things, is to have a context in your mind that which you're going to apply it to, so that it gives you a visual. Because just the concepts on its own, you're learning, and it's like, okay, yeah, and that's where people have the most difficulty, just taking in the concepts and then just learning the concepts, right? And then you're like, okay, now what do I do with it?
I agree.
A question, Lionel. If say you got a cousin or a nephew that has no interest in this field, but you can see their potential and you want them to get involved. How do you do that? How do you go about doing that? You just throw a book in front of them. You can't just throw a book in front of them and say, hey, this is a good idea. Why don't you do it? How you interest them in something like that?
Me, what I would do is I would sit down with them and go through it with them to help them understand, because once there's two people doing it, that's another way of helping them learn it more, make it easier, the learning process easier. I'm sure these other people on the panel have different ways of answering that question, but me, I would say, hey, this is the future, and I would show them why I mean it's the future, not just saying it. I'll show them the indeed the different jobs that are in demand in that field, and show them there's not enough people to fill these positions, and it's in demand. It's growing, and these are the ways you can learn this information. And hey, you may not have an appetite for it now, but I'm willing to sit down and help you learn it. Go through with it with you. Hello?
Yeah, everyone needs a mentor.
Yeah.
All right, next
I agree.
article is from CNBC.com. Tesla cars keep more data than you think, including this video of a crash that totaled a Model 3. If you crash your Tesla when it goes to the junkyard, it could carry a bunch of your history with it. That's because the computers on the Tesla vehicles keep everything that drivers have voluntarily stored on their cars, plus tons of other information generated by the vehicle, including video, location, and navigation data showing exactly what happened leading up to the crash, according to two security researchers. One researcher, who calls himself Green the Only, describes himself as a white hat hacker and a Tesla enthusiast who drives a Model X. He has extracted this kind of data from the computers in the salvaged Tesla Model S, Model X, and two Model 3 vehicles, while also making tens of thousands of dollars cashing in on Tesla bug bounties in recent years. He agreed to speak and share data and video with CNBC on the condition of pseudonymity, citing citing privacy concerns. Many other cars download and store data from users, particularly information from paired cell phones, such as contact information. The practice is widespread through the U.S., enough that the U.S. Federal Trade Commission has issued advisors to drivers warning them about pairing devices to rental cars and urging them to learn how to wipe their car's system clean before returning a rental or selling a car they own. But the researchers' findings highlight how Tesla is full of contradictions on privacy and cybersecurity. On one hand, Tesla holds car-generated data closely and has fought customers in court to refrain from giving up vehicle data. Owners must purchase $995 cables and download a software kit from Tesla to get limited information out of their cars via event data recorders. There, should they need should they need this for legal, insurance, or other reasons? I'm on the fence about this because most cars that you have your data, your location. If it has any sort of high end GPS based navigation system inside the car, it has all this information in its black box too. So it's not just Tesla that has this. Most other cars have this. So why is Tesla getting a rag for this? I think that Tesla needs to encrypt their data, and then they wouldn't have this issue. Had they used some form of SHA-256, at least you wouldn't really have this so much of a problem. Or Tesla could have actually put the user data into a different bin for all you Linux guys. Put it into a different bin, and this wouldn't be the case because they can terminate that user data almost immediately through a Wi-Fi connection because it does broadcast. Some of these Teslas do have 4G, and most of them just have Wi-Fi, but it should be easy for a car to connect to the network or a laptop or something like that and just wipe it. If a Tesla consultant should come out and actually do that. So I'm on the fence about this. What do you think about this, Lionel? You sent this in.
Yeah, my main reason for sending this in was I wanted to hear Complex's thoughts about it. But my thoughts about it is I understand what you're saying, but I would imagine Tesla keeps more information compared to other vehicles. With other vehicles now, you can connect your phone with the console and have that. But with Tesla, it's more of a technology centered car, even more than these other cars. It's a, for all intents and purposes, lack of a better term, it's a engineering marvel. So it has a lot of information based into it. It has its user profiles, much like printers. People don't realize there's hard drives in printers. When they get rid of their printers, all that information is in there. So I agree with you. Well, I really your what you said and how to get rid of that. That's a great idea to pull everything into a bin and just send a kill execution to that bin to trash it, and you're done.
I think there should be a command that's made where it triggers that if there's an accident and the airbags deploy. Once the airbags deploy, it does it. Because once the airbags
No,
deploy,
you don't want to.
Hmm?
What you don't want to do that for legal reasons, because if the car was involved in some kind of incident, such as a murder or some form of crime, you need to actually have forensics go all the way back on that vehicle. So
Oh
you
no,
don't
no.
want it to actually delete it.
Well, no, we're I mean, we're talking about like a vehicle. Let's say, for example, that was crashed. Okay, so if it's crashed,
Yeah, but the vehicle could have been crashed for a variety of reasons. Could have gotten into a police chase. Could have been some other. If the vehicle is involved in a crime and it does get into a crash and it deletes that data, then from a
no,
forensic
it doesn't.
standpoint, it's no good.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't delete it. What it does is that there's like a command that's done when the airbags deploy, right? That makes it to where that data isn't accessible by just anyone, right? That data then has to be accessible by Tesla and Tesla only, by some like a service of notice or something like that, or there's some sort of agreement on the books where in the event that the airbags deploy for whatever reason, or the vehicle, once it was deemed that the vehicle was like you said, was it maybe involved in some sort of crime or something like that, like you have to there has to be a switch that goes on, right, to where certain data then isn't accessible by just anyone. And that would be one way to do it, because to kind of follow up on what Lionel was saying, Tesla's cars, they collect far more data than vehicles that just have a connectivity system where, if you put your smartphone in, yeah, it's going to get your contacts and data from your phone, in addition to whatever remedial data is recorded on the vehicles. But with electric cars, that's a whole. Literally everything is recorded. Literally everything is recorded. So there has to be some way where there's certain data that isn't accessible in the event that the car is involved in some sort of issue where it's not in regular operation. Now, the brother Rich Rebuilds, I don't know if you guys check that channel out. So this is a brother on YouTube who basically hacks Teslas. He does just this, and he's been running into problems with Tesla with regards to getting certain things done on the cars that he's legally acquired. And he's run into this issue with Tesla all the damn time. So this kind of, I think we're in a kind of like a new frontier with regards to this, because of the sheer amount of data that Tesla collects. It's way more data than any traditional internal combustion engine car records, as far as its computers are concerned. Electric vehicles record literally everything, and that's.
Well, they did.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that because of GDPR, that has to change, right? So I'm surprised that they have not made this change. They could really be sued at this point for this sort of data mishandling, because GDPR requires that those Teslas that are holding user data has to be removed at the user's request. And if these vehicles are being totaled and written off and found in salvage yards and still holding that data, that's a lawsuit like that from the European Union can bring Tesla right to its knees.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's that issue, and then that also references the issue that dude Rich always runs into, when he gets a wrecked Tesla and he gets to hacking it, yeah, they're saying, oh, well, there's proprietary information. Remove it. I bought the car.
What you said, proprietary information?
Or no, like the information that they're saying, like certain things that it is that he's not able to do, and he's running into problems with them trying to get certain things taken care of on the cars because he's bought them. You know, and so he's hacking them, but he's like also like letting them know, like, hey, look, can you guys do this? Can you do this? Can you do that? Because I can't really do anything with the car unless you guys, unless he starts coming up with like workarounds and stuff. So if you follow his channel, man, he's run into some very interesting challenges with Tesla around this type of stuff.
Mm-hmm. DE, you have anything you want to add to this?
No, not right now.
Okay. All right, this next one is from boingboing.net. What a name. Small stickers on the ground trick Tesla autopilot into steering into opposing traffic lane. Researchers from Tencent Keen Security Lab have published a report detailing their successful attacks on Tesla firmware, including remote control over steering and adversarial example attack on the autopilot that confuses the car into driving into the oncoming traffic lane. The researchers used an attack chain that they disclosed to Tesla, in which Tesla now claims has been eliminated with recent patches. To effect the remote steering attack, the researchers had to bypass several redundant layers of protection. But having done this, they were able to write an app that would let them connect a video game controller to a mobile device and then steer a target device, overriding the actual steering wheel in the car as well as the autopilot systems. This attack has some limitations. While a car in park or traveling at high speed on cruise control can be taken over completely, a car that has recently shifted from R to D can only be remote controlled at speeds of up to 8 kilometers an hour. Tesla vehicles use a variety of neural networks for autopilot and other functions, such as detecting rain on the windscreen and switching on the wipers. The researchers were able to use adversarial examples, small, mostly human, imperceptible changes that cause machine learning systems to make gross out of proportion errors to attack these. Most
Jeez.
dramatically, the researchers attack most dramatically the researchers attacked the autopilot's lane detection systems. By adding noise to lane markings, they were able to fool the autopilot into losing the lanes altogether. However, the patches they had to apply to the lane would not be hard for humans to spot.
Yeah, I was gonna say those are like little, just small little rumble strip patches. And you just wow.
Much more seriously, they were able to use small stickers on the ground to effect a fake lane attack that fooled the autopilot into steering into the opposite lanes where oncoming traffic would be moving. This worked. This worked even when the targeted vehicle was operating in the daylight without snow, dust,
That's a
or other interference.
that is such a simple hack. Wow.
Well, we talked about security of autonomous vehicles, DOS attacks, which would be the first one, but this is
That's a new
a spoof
angle.
attack, basically.
Yeah.
It's a traditional attack, but it's a spoof. It's considered to be a spoof attack because you spoof the car, the autopilot system, into thinking that it was in a different lane than what it should have been, and threw it
Just
right
by
off course.
putting a
Now
little
imagine,
rumble strip down there, and the computer senses that it's going over like the little lane indicator or the lane marcation bumps. But all they did was just lay some shit down over into the lane a little bit more to trick the computer to thinking it was actually more over into the lane.
Or to overfill the data set for machine learning and then throw the machine learning way off course.
Right, right. Because then what happens is it does, because then all cars update. Don't all the vehicles up? Yeah. Wow. Oh shit.
But I'm pretty sure they're not the only ones having this issue. I'm pretty sure that Lyft and Uber would also have the same issue because they're using the same similar systems. This is big. This is really big, especially for all these
that's major, dude. That's why I'm laughing.
Guys, yeah, especially for all these guys who are caught napping while driving their Teslas and autopilot. Good luck to you.
Literally, they're getting caught asleep at the wheel.
Oh yeah.
Literally.
Mm-hmm. People taking naps while their Tesla is driving. Man, what a risk.
Yep. Just roll over a patch of road where somebody got smart, got slick, and laid down some little rumble strips. Wow. Unbelievable.
Or you know, graffiti on the road that matches the same paint as the lane marker itself.
Right. 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 So the camera it throws off the camera and the LiDAR.
Yeah, and you have to remember, if you're in a convoy or there's multiple Teslas around, those other Teslas saying, "Well, I need to brake left too." Well, guess what? There's a guardrail right there. You're gonna go right through that guardrail.
Damn. Oh, boy.
Nicole Ali in the chat says, I think the car insurance companies would have a field day with this too. I'm pretty sure the car insurance companies haven't exactly figured this out themselves, because Tesla hasn't even figured this out. Right?
They haven't, but you got to remember, this is all going to ultimately be for autonomous vehicles, right? So you have to kind of look at the insurance angle as more of a commercial application, as opposed to maybe say like individual liabilities per se. I mean, because if you're in a car wreck, you're in a car wreck, okay? And, you know, you're going to get, you know, if you're insured on whatever levels, you know, you're going to get compensated for your injuries. But, you know, the idea here is that the autonomous vehicles won't largely be owned by people. Mm-hmm. That's the thing. So that's where everything kind of shifts, actually. So yeah, insurance companies are actually trying to figure out like the actuary on this, because like, you know, you have like, you know, we have different examples of either where the car was at fault, the self-driving car was at fault, or it was human error and the car was correct. In the case of like the Uber, the self-driving Uber car, where it was actually the other person who was at fault, right? So these case studies actually begin to build and give you the data to begin to build an actuary. So you have to have more real world scenarios. You know, there has to be more case studies and stuff like that, where actuaries can be put together, an actuary table on, you know, how to insure this type of stuff. But this presents a new angle. Go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
Yeah, they would have to insure the autopilot itself, because the autopilot is would be the user in this regard. Because you have to take into consideration that Waymo is already self-driving, right? I mean, for most part, they're required to have a human in the vehicle. But what happens when you remove the human element from the vehicle, and this vehicle is potentially compromised because of a traditional threat vector, feeding it garbage data, and that garbage data shuts down the system, and now you have vehicles in back of this Waymo vehicle that cause a rear-end collision. Maybe the user, or maybe the passengers get whiplash. Okay, so who's liable for this? And how do you even trace who made that that surface level attack? Because you really can't tell who injected that data, that corrupt data, into the system itself. You really can't trace any of this. And you're talking about creating a whole network of vehicles on a highway. This is state level adversary attacks, like the article said. This is if you have a problem with another country, something like this can shut down your whole entire highway.
Yeah, they attack your transportation infrastructure. You get the cars that just start doing all kind of shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're talking about adding traffic lights into all of this. Traffic management systems that have to communicate with these vehicles, and vehicles are actually feeding these traffic management systems real-time information.
Mm-hmm.
Now all of a sudden your traffic signals are blinking off and on. These autonomous vehicles can't move forward, or they do move forward all at the same time, and they all just run into each other because they have poor information or bad information.
Yep. That's another way to do it. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, Nicole Ali in the chat says maybe there will be less room for fraud on Rex with this application.
That's kind of the thought. That's sort of the thought. If you remove the human, human element, then the tech and the software will take care of itself with very little error. Now, the data on that at this point kind of points to that, suggests that that's the case. So, if that is the case, then in all actuality, insuring vehicles would actually be a lot less in terms of the cost.
Mm-hmm. I can see the FCC is going to get in on this, as well as the National Highway for Transportation and Safety Administration.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to get in on this. This type of incident can actually bankrupt Tesla, because you're talking about Massachusetts data laws state that for every record that is lost, that's up to $50,000, up to $1 million a record. So if you lost, if Tesla lost, 24 records, man, that's not something that they can just walk away from. You can't get your way out of that. And New York has data laws now too. That's very similar to Massachusetts.
And you're just going to be seeing more and more states putting things on the books with regards to that, because of how data is being collected and stored. Mm-hmm. And it becomes a very convenient excuse in the event that there's a lawsuit and they say, oh, you know what, we just don't have those records. Sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Mm-hmm.
What was the last thing you said, Complex? I missed it.
Oh, no. I was just saying that it becomes very convenient, in the event of a lawsuit, just to say that, oh, we don't have those records. They disappeared. And there's no sort of punitive of measures taken in the event that a company that puts a self-driving car out on the road just so happens to not have records in the event that there's an accident. I mean, no, there has to be some sort of punitive damage in the event that they can't produce those records, you know, when they're requested.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Makes you think twice about well, just about all cars, man. I don't want to put it just on Tesla because I mean Tesla's a you know they stick out like a sore thumb, but most of these companies,
I'm sorry, Mark. Go ahead.
most of these automakers are collecting data at some point. I'm pretty sure GM's Volt and Cadillac EV, you know, those have data on them as well. What the level of autonomous capabilities they have, I don't really know. I haven't really driven one of those, but Ford, I'm pretty sure they've got to be looking at this. I think Rice over on BGS for Women. I think she works in the auto industry, man. I think she works in compliance, so maybe she can speak to some of this stuff. I heard her talk about firmware before, firmware for vehicles before. So definitely they have to be paying attention to that. But compliance is compliance. You know, you got a check box of things that you things that you trying to go down from a baseline standpoint. That's one thing. But what happens when your car has been spoofed by some Pokemon in the road? I mean, literally a Pokemon in the road just sent your vehicle into the opposite direction. All right, this next one is from Quartz.com. A startup aims to launch China's first privately backed orbital rocket. In 2014, China's central government called for private capital to invest in commercial satellite operations. Since then, a slew of rocket startups have been established. Yet, so far, none have successfully launched their products into orbit. That could be about to change. OneSpace, a Beijing-based private space company, told Quartz it is launching a solid propellant rocket into orbit between 5 p.m. and 6 p.m. local time on March 27th. It's the second attempt from a private Chinese space company after another firm failed last year. OneSpace's rocket will carry a satellite from Zero G technology that it says weighs less than 100 kilograms, 220 pounds. Zero G, a Beijing-based small satellite developer, earlier said on a microblogging site that the launch would take place on March 25th. OneSpace disputed that date, but declined to share more exact timing with Quartz last week. Zero G didn't respond to queries about the mission. OneSpace did say it is preparing for the launch at the Jiquan Satellite Launch Center in the Gobi Desert in northern China. Their rocket OSM is 19 meters tall, weighs about 20 metric tons, 22 tons, and consists of 3 solid propellant stages and a 4th liquid propellant stage. It can carry a payload of 143 kilograms, 315 pounds, to low Earth orbit at an altitude of 300 kilometers, 190 miles, according to the firm, which says preparing for the launch requires less than 48 hours. The news comes as multiple private space companies look to enter the launch market for commercial satellites, which in China is still in its early stages. Yet private space companies are getting capital and government support, such as launch sites and funding, which is typical of private space efforts in US, Japan, and France. Most Chinese rocket makers, like OneSpace, start with solid propellant designs typically developed for use in military ballistic missiles, which are less complex to manufacture, lowering upfront costs. These designs could be uncompetitive, however, if larger reusable rocket designs by SpaceX and Blue Origin continue to bring down the cost of launching satellites into orbit, or if small liquid-fueled rockets could prove liquid rockets prove to be more attractive to customers. This is something that we have been talking about for a minute, that 1 in every 3 startups is going to be a space startup, and you see the cost is coming down to a point where they're using low-grade military-based rockets. I saw one company before they were using old Scud missiles from the Soviet Union era. Typically, a Scud missile was used in Iraq during the Iran war. They were using Scud missiles, so that's why it's so famously talked about. But it's really called an OTR-21. My point in saying this is that leveraging old military tech from 25 years ago has actually been proven to be cost effective for space startups. So
Yeah, if you now so now they're leveraging this old tech mixed with new tech, which means the materials, the already manufactured materials, the use of that is going to come down. So they won't blow through that really fast, and the cost of new materials to get into space is going to come down lower, which is going to extend their supply and their funding to get things in space. So I can see that happening. And with China, we've mentioned over and over again on these past shows of China's plan, a little bit of China's plan on colonizing space, colonizing the
the moon.
orbit and the moon, putting solar panels on the moon. So China is really pushing forward with this space program, and now they have a way to cheapen and lessen the blow to get this to get their space program and going.
Yeah, I mean it's actually fairly cheap. I mean, we went over this on Saturday what it would cost to build a space a cube-based satellite.
Hmm.
We went over that. Just the cost of that alone is very affordable. If you wanted to do it from a nation state standpoint, nation state being black people in America, so it's very cost effective now. And to answer Rodney Holmes in the chat, he says, "Do you guys think that space tech startups will be the next big thing, especially for the 2020s and 2030s?"
I would say hell yes, and I have my own plans for 2020.
420 or 2020?
That's a good one.
Both.
That's a good one.
No, to answer Rodney Holmes' question, at least from my perspective, we have been talking about this since we started doing these hangouts, which is why we came up with space and technology for the title of the hangout. Because initially we were just talking about technology, but then we kind of looked into the space aspect, and all of the technical analysis said otherwise. It basically said that 1 in every 3 startups is going to be a space startup, and this is where everybody's going. A lot of your space startups in America are being started by people who came from Tesla, people who came from SpaceX, people who came from NASA. Um, they came from Google. So they came from all of these Silicon Valley tech startups, but they're leveraging existing technologies for their, at an affordable cost, and it's actually working. It's working to their advantage. So,
In the automotive industry,
uh,
they call it resto modding. You take something
mhm,
that's already built and you repurpose it.
mhm. DE, do you have anything you want to add to this? Okay. So what is the cost of a startup? SpaceX was a multi-billion-dollar effort, and then Blue Origin was a multi-billion-dollar effort, and then you factor in the rest of these space startups. As more startups came online, the less and less the upfront cost became. And now you factor in you don't need a big data center for 3D modeling and all that stuff. You can buy compute time from AWS, which is Amazon Web Services. So you buy just as much time as you need, and then you shut down the service when you're done, or you shut down the compute service when you're done, or the compute stack. And then you factor in laptops and things like that. Don't really need a whole big, powerful laptop. I mean, you can buy a basic Microsoft Surface for half the price of a MacBook. And then you just factor in the licensing of the software. It's just a matter of the upfront cost is going to be $100,000 out the gate. If you're so inclined to eat ramen noodles, once or twice a day, for the first 6 months, you might be able to get by.
What was the question that you were answering, Mike?
Rodney Holmes in the chat.
Oh, okay.
All right, this one is from physics.org. MIT and NASA engineers demonstrate a new kind of airplane wing. A team of engineers has built and tested a radically new kind of airplane wing, assembled from hundreds of tiny, identical pieces. The wing can change shape to control the plane's flight and could provide a significant boost in aircraft production, flight and maintenance efficiency, and the researchers say. The new approach to wing construction could afford greater flexibility in the design and manufacturing of future aircraft. The new wing design was tested in a NASA wind tunnel and is described today in a paper in the journal Smart Materials and Structures, co-authored by research engineer Nicholas Kramer at NASA Ames in California, MIT alumnus Kenneth Schoon, PhD, now at NASA, Ames Benjamin Jeanette, a graduate student in MIT Center for Bits and Atoms, and 8 others. Instead of requiring separate movable surfaces such as ailerons to control the roll and pitch of the plane, conventional wings do, the new assembly system makes it possible to deform the whole wing or parts of it by incorporating a mix of stiff and flexible components in its structure. The tiny subassemblies, which are bolted together to form an open, lightweight lattice framework, are then covered with a thin layer of similar polymer material as the framework. It's interesting. The result is a wing that is much lighter and thus much more energy efficient than those with conventional designs. Whether made from metal or composites, the researchers say, because the structure comprising thousands of tiny triangles of matchstick-like struts is composed mostly of empty space. It forms a mechanical metamaterial that combines the structural stiffness of a rubber-like polymer and the extreme lightness and low density of aerogel. This is a picture of it right here.
I saw.
I mean,
oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say that for all intents and purposes, it looks like the B-2 bomber.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm assuming is it has scales like a fish, where a fish kind of puffs itself in and out, and then the scales kind of are used for flexing.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's exactly what they're talking about, because I saw something. Oh man, it's maybe like about 4 days ago, and I meant to send it in the email chain. But there's an actual manufacturing process. It's a term that they're giving it in the 3D printing community, where basically what you do is you print the mechanical movements into the device, right? So when it prints out, it's like the device actually morphs and moves and shifts. So what that thing does is, like it said, it's a web of a bunch of triangles, like struts. So it moves and morphs and shifts, and then there's like you said, scales that overlay it. So it maintains its aerodynamic surface area, but the understructure, it moves, and so it's able to like account more rather than just having, like I said, the aileron, the flaps. Instead of having that, the actual whole entire structure just moves according to the wind dynamics. So it can kind of just like kind of swim in the turbulent air.
Mm-hmm. You have anything you want to add to this, DE? From a former Air Force person yourself?
I think he might have stepped away.
Hmm. Yeah, I want to hear what he had to say. No comment from me.
I believe that the Russians used a similar technology on a submarine prototype recently. The submarine had scales like a fish, made it harder to detect by radar or by sonar, and also made it twice as more stealth than what it was before. Very interesting approach to technology. That's probably why the video I sent Lionel is no longer available. It's probably what it was.
Yeah, that would have been interesting.
Mm-hmm. All right, this last one is from physics.org. Scientists find likely source of methane on Mars. The mystery of methane on Mars may finally be solved as scientists Monday confirmed the presence of the life-indicating gas on the red planet, as well as where it might have come from. In the 15 years since a European probe reported traces of gas in the Martian's atmosphere, debate has raged over the accuracy of the readings showing methane, which on Earth is produced by simple life forms. Because methane gas dissipates relatively quickly within around 12 years on Earth, and due to the difficulty of observing Mars' atmosphere, many scientists question previous studies that relied on a single data set. Now, an international team of experts have compared observations from two separate spacecraft, taken just one day apart in 2013, to find independent proof of methane on our neighboring planet. Furthermore, they conducted two parallel experiments to determine the most likely source of methane on Mars to be an ice sheet east of Gale Crater, itself long assumed to be dried up lake. This is very sorry. This is very exciting and largely unexpected. Marco Giriana from Rome's National Astrophysics Institute told AFP. Two completely independent lines of investigation pointed to the same general area of the most likely source for the methane. Europe's Mars Express probe measured 15.5 parts per billion in the atmosphere above Gale Crater on June 16, 2013. The presence of methane in the vicinity was confirmed by readings taken 24 hours earlier by NASA's Curiosity rover. Using the data, Giriana and the team divided the region around the crater into grids of 250 by 250 square kilometers. One study then ran a million computer model scenarios for each section, while another team studied images of the planet's surface for features associated on Earth with the release of methane. The, excuse me. The most likely source was a sheet of frozen methane beneath a rock formation, which the team believes periodically ejects the gas into the atmosphere. Giriona said that while methane is a sign of life on Earth, its presence on Mars doesn't necessarily constitute evidence of something similar on the red planet. Methane is important because it could be an indicator of microbial life, he said. But life is not required to explain these detections because methane can be produced by abiotic processes. Though not a direct biosignature of life, methane can add to the habitability of Martian settings, as certain types of microbes can use methane as a source of carbon and energy. He added. Though there is no liquid water on Mars, the European Space Agency said in February its imaging equipment had shown further evidence of dried up riverbeds, suggesting the red planet may once have been home to simple organisms. This is yeah, this is it's too bad Nicole Ali's on the panel because I would like to hear her scientific opinion on this. But
And the link.
if you're telling me, well, I don't think she wants to be on the panel, but
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to think if there was some life on there at some point. Wouldn't there be some kind of fossils somewhere? I mean, they still find dinosaur fossils all over the different continents on Earth. So if there was something up there, where's the traces of this stuff? Like
Now for
there's
the
a riverbed, but there's no fish bones up there or anything like that.
now for the dinosaur fossils, what I know, they have to be preserved correctly, meaning if the dinosaur died in a bed of mud that preserved the fossils, or if the dinosaur died in a tar pits, things of that nature, bottom of a riverbed that preserved the bones, then that's why they're finding all these dinosaur bones. If a dinosaur just died in a millions of years ago in the savannah, then that may not be conducive to finding those bones. Um, Very rarely do scientists find whole, well preserved dinosaur bones. Now, I say it to say, you take that to Mars, we don't know how long ago, let's say organisms did produce this methane. We don't know how long ago that was. We don't know how long ago Mars has been barren like this, with the atmosphere stripped away, with the bombardment of these type of different rays on Mars. Now, I do agree with you. It's very interesting. What if some type of organisms created this large deposit of methane that has survived to this day, where we can detect it? Maybe they will find something here, something there, but it may not be a whole preserved skeleton of whatever that was there on Mars.
I would say there's two things to this. One, okay, what we don't know is all that has been recorded in terms of like the data, video footage, what's been collected. Okay, there's only what they're showing us. That's the first thing, right? So I'm not going to make any assumptions that anything interesting hasn't been discovered. Okay. The second thing is in terms of the fact that they've detected methane there, I would say, well, look, game on. Now you have the ability to terraform because you have a fuel source, right? So you have rain making devices, right, that can take into account what the atmosphere is comprised of, and start injecting other elements into the atmosphere to make it ripe for, say, like rainstorms to start to occur, stuff like that.
Mhm.
You know, and you have the fuel source to enable these machines to power to do it. Like I said, you know, if you're thinking about colonizing and terraforming Mars, you have to think about, and I'm being all like very realistic about the shit. Like, you would have to send some machines there to do that type of stuff for probably like 150 years first, unless you wanted to go there, you know, with the whole sort of like, we're going to set up bubble colonies and all of that. But if you wanted to create like an atmospheric condition within Mars, because all signs are pointing to the primary elements there being needed, you just have to terraform it. Methane is a big indicator. That means you have an energy source.
Yeah, and I just want to throw this other element into it. So the perspective that they're saying, or they're speculating that the bacteria that would have created human life at some point on Earth may have come from an asteroid from somewhere else, and that asteroid carried that bacteria with it to Earth and left that bacteria on Earth to
Germinated
develop.
here.
Yeah, germinated here, right? So it created
Mhm.
that human life here. Maybe at some point there may have been, you know, whatever predated the Cometians could have been up there. I mean,
Yeah.
they're still finding fossils that are allegedly 500 million years old.
Mhm.
Allegedly 500 million years old. That's a long time.
Long time ago. You know,
We don't even
kind of.
know how old. You know, we don't even know how old human life or life itself really goes back. Like
Well,
we really don't know.
well, the primary issue, you know, not to kind of, you know, not to drift off a bit, but you know, the primary issue here is the concept of time in and of itself, right? And how we're, you know, it's a measurement, it's a unit of measurement, okay? But it doesn't it doesn't accurately account for like past events. It really doesn't. Okay, like if you're using if you're using a like sort of like a modern uh, time indicator, okay, doesn't necessarily apply to prior events, right? When perhaps time was being recorded under a different set of rules. I mean, when you look at especially like submariner watches, stuff like that, where they'll give you it'll give you astronomical time, it'll give you solar time, it'll give you what do they call Gregorian, okay, which is what we use is our modern day clock and calendar. So it gives you all of these different things, but when you're talking about like sidereal time and going back in time, you know, when you saw astrolabes and stuff like that, okay, so those things were recording time like Venus time, Saturnian time, Sirius, like the star system Sirius, Earth time. That it recorded a multitude of time structures all at once. Like it gave you, so you know, the ancient mariners of you know, Phoenician mariners and stuff, they were using a whole different data set in terms of time calculation. So it really makes it difficult to like frame things in our modern time construct. I didn't mean to
Now
get too
this
heady, but
theory,
I'm sorry.
No,
now
no,
this
that's
what a
dope.
theory,
That's dope.
now this what a theory of
Go ahead.
relativity comes in, because time is relative to wherever you go into space. And I do agree with you, because time on Earth is relative to Earth, because we are used to, okay, the Earth spins on its axis. It takes 24 hours to do that. It takes 365 days to spin around the sun. Now that's relative to Earth, but if we go to Venus, Venus spins slower around the sun, which means no, not slower, but slower on its axis. which means one Earth day would equals about 584 hours on Venus. So it's relative, but that to me, there's, I would say, you will have to have a certain calculation to calculate, okay, if time is relative to this celestial planet, is this, then come up with some type of formula that will tell you, or that will give you the time in Earth time, because no one still doesn't know how these people have come up with this. But the Dogon in Mali country in Africa, they follow the Sirius system, and in that system, I think it was Sirius B. In that system, their week is 5 days instead of 7 days, so it's relative. It's relative
You
to
said
wherever
Sirius
you.
X. You said Sirius XM.
No, no, not XM. It was B. No, it's relative. It's relative wherever you go. So I would just say you have to come up with some type of formula, knowing that the time and wherever you are going, have it translate to Earth time.
So
On
you think the Africans were onto something?
They did something.
the,
We don't know. All the information may not didn't make it through the years to today, but they did something.
Go ahead, JE.
I expect one day that these people to come up and say, look, Earth was once a larger planet than it was. Mars used to be part of Earth. From what I'm seeing, everything that is on Mars is on Earth.
Well, that's throughout the solar system.
And
That's throughout the solar system. The solar system, everything that's in the solar system and the say the solar system is made up of, all the planets are made up of somewhat of the same thing. Like Venus. Venus is more Earth-like than Mars is. So a lot of things you'll find on Earth, you're going to find on these inner terrestrial planets.
Mm.
Methane is not only on Mars, but you have methane on one of these giant moons of the jovial planets. No, they have riverbeds of methane. So you're pretty
I
much
always
going to
thought
find the
Jupiter
same.
was made up of methane.
Say again.
I always thought that Jupiter was made up of methane as well.
The moon Titan have riverbeds of methane.
Yeah.
So you're going to find the same things that make up these planets, because the thing is this: when the solar system was first built, not to say someone built it, but when the first solar system first came around, everything was spinning around the sun. You had things going in different directions. You had things hitting off on top, hitting off each other. So what happened was, the things we got things going in different directions. They're gonna work themselves out. So after a while, things are gonna collide with each other, and you're gonna have a dominant spin within the solar system. Other solar system have spin a different direction, but it's like a self spin. So you have planets that ran into each other. We may have had more planets than this, but through time, the I want to say the strongest survive, but the biggest survive. Whatever formed themselves survive. So with these asteroids, you're going to find carbon out there. You're going to find carbon on Mars. So everything is made somewhat of the same, have the same elements. Some planets you'll have more elements than Earth, or you may have something else that's unique to that planet. So it's pretty much the same thing.
We have somebody in the chat. Odinga says, "Folks, I have to disagree with the uh, helos, heliocentric theory."
Heliocentric theory.
Yes.
What's the opposing?
Maybe
theory?
he's typing right now.
Oh, okay.
Odinga is a kind of he looks at what we call ancient mythology. I said what we call because of a lot of it is true. A lot of it is fact. It's been given to us as mythology by you know who, and we
Right,
just believe it, you know. But
right.
a lot of
Myth,
it is fact.
yeah, myth comes from a lot of myth come from actual stories. Just like Troy. Um,
Hmm.
the city of Troy was thought to be a myth, but until they found it. Just like it was an ancient city in India, thought to be a myth, but until they found it. A lot of myth come from actual fact.
Yeah, well, I mean, mythology is largely relegated to things of an antediluvian nature, right? So anything that has historical context but predates the flood, right? Anything pre-flood, basically. Um, the history with regard to those periods of time pre-flood and going back into Atlantis and Lemuria, if you even want to go that far, is largely relegated to mythology, quote unquote. But no, I absolutely agree.
I think it's more of a way to pass down knowledge, to pass down a history of a people instead of writing it down. Because a lot of times, if people did write things down, it was lost or burnt, or because of invaders, they burnt everything or destroyed everything. So it was a way to pass down a group's history to other past to newer generations
Well,
to tell it in a story.
okay. Odin is asking a question. I guess maybe this is referencing an earlier portion of the conversation, or I'm not sure. But he says, "How can a wait? Hold on. How can a rocket maneuver in a vacuum?" Now, I assume you're asking how does a rocket maneuver in space?
Yeah, that's what he said. Look, we were told that space is a vacuum, but space is not really a vacuum. There's nothing in
Mhm.
the universe that's dead. Everything in the universe is alive. You can't have something dead living in something. You can't have something dead existing in a living environment. Like poison, it would poison the environment. So everything is life. It's just life changes from life to life.
I mean, there's no argument there. I guess like when you say if I say space, right? Well, you know, what is the context in which we're understanding space? You know, I would in my mind I contextualize space as an area unoccupied by material matter, right? So, I mean, I guess you know, space and vacuum, I guess, are interchangeable. So I'm trying to understand the question maybe from a logical standpoint. Like, okay, are you asking about the physics or mechanics, or is this like sort of like a philosophical slash rhetorical? You know, that's where I'm maybe trying to understand the angle.
Well, a vacuum is a vacuum would have to be mechanical mechanics. You know, space. Uh, there's no such thing. To me, there's no such thing as a vacuum. I because there's always something within it. It's like looking at a glass and saying there's no because you can see through it. There's no water in it, no liquid in it. Nothing.
Do you believe in the concept of the electric universe?
Yeah.
Okay, so that would mean that any and all things, right, even the space, right, is occupied by is something occupies it, and that would be the ether.
Yes.
So, I mean, if we're talking, like I said, I'm a literalist. Space is literally an area that is unoccupied by material matter, right?
Right.
So, if we are saying how does a rocket maneuver within that, then my assumption is, I guess the question would be mechanics based, and then maybe the question then becomes like, okay, varying densities based on the area of space, right? I'm trying to be very literal.
Mm.
So I just want to make sure I'm understanding the question clearly. We have been taught in high school that space is a vacuum. A vacuum is impossible, right? Connection, pure vacuum is impossible. I mean, that's what I mean. You know, I'm kind of like, all right, let's go with what it is that we can actually observe with our own eyes. you know, and feel with our hands. I mean, if you take your hand and you swipe it through the air real fast, you're going to feel resistance against your hand. Okay. The resistance that you felt is the ether. Okay. So we know we can verify this through our own senses that it is a substance that exists in space. There's no real difference between the unoccupied area that you stand in and the area above you. What's the difference? Density? Okay, yeah, maybe. But what is the actual primary difference? Oxygen levels, hydrogen levels, okay. Yeah. But what about the actual space though? It's the same shit.
Anyway, but back to Mars. You see, like everybody is trying to get to Mars, including Elon Musk. Elon Musk, not Eli. Elon Musk. He's got his mind set on I am going to Mars. The first it was get into the upper atmosphere, the moon. Now he's going beyond, saying, "Look, I'm going to Mars. You with me?" And that's what the next step is going to be. So they're looking at
Well,
Mars
he's a
as a
business person.
to live.
But he's a business person. He's not. He's not the. You know, he's not the visionary that we would want to make him out to be in that regard. Because if he was, you know, he would have went to school for science or something like that. He'd be more proficient in those areas rather than sitting on a hangout with Joe Rogan. Yeah, I mean, you almost mixed him up with Eli. I mean, I think Eli is BGS. I mean, I don't think BGS and Elon Musk are closely related. Maybe one's a master teacher. I don't know if the other one isn't, but
Master capitalist.
yeah, master weed smoker. Yeah, I think that I think it's interesting though that they're finding all this stuff out on Mars. You know, dried up riverbeds, possibilities of methane gas, dust storms. You know, so there's wind. They're using helicopters on Mars now, so gravity is relative. Yeah, I think there's a lot more research on our half that needs to be done, and just in terms of Black people, just in how they view things. I think we're totally disconnected from the sciences in that regard, unless we include social media as a science now.
A social
With
science.
your rest in pieces, yeah, with your rest in pieces and famous rappers and whatnot. We're very disconnected from a lot of these things, and it's frustrating because you want to have these conversations on a deeper level, and there's not that many people to actually have that conversation with to even go down that rabbit hole. If you,
You're not really disconnected because for since about I used to listen to a radio program um starting about 20 years ago. The guy used to come on late at night and he had this huge following. And they would talk about stuff like this, about what NASA found when they looked at the moon and what they found when they sent satellites to Mars. And they were sending satellites to Mars long before they told us that they were sending it out there. And a lot of the things that this guy used to talk about are for about the last 10 years, NASA been coming out dribble by dribble saying yes, really admitting, not saying that what he says is right, but they've been passing out the information that he's been talking about that I heard 20 years before. So it's just that some people don't pay attention to this thing. They don't have interest in it, because they call it conspiracy theories. But
Well, I think that's why it's kind of important that because we mentioned like time telling devices like astrolabes and stuff like that, and why we as if you go if you can connect yourself, if we have the capabilities to kind of connect ourselves to who we were prior to slavery, because for a lot of folks, it seems like our history begins with slavery. But if you look at that as just sort of like a blip in the expanse of history and time, then, we were seafaring people that used these highly sophisticated, highly advanced astronomical devices that calculated, again, it wasn't time that was necessarily perceived from here, but it was a device that gave you the time perceived from here, and then the time based on based on the celestial movements of other bodies, right? See, so we had differing and varying time references. So we actually temporarily we operated on a different plane, if you will, a different mindset. It's really kind of hard to try to convey, but your perception of time is going to shape your perception of how you view the world as in totality, right? So if you just base everything on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday framework, then your life is based on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday framework, and you have the expectations for each day, and all of your feelings and all of your emotions and everything that you do is tied into these days that have certain references and significances, right? But what if you were plugged into like the Venusian time? What the hell is that? Like what is that about, right? Like, I don't even know like what that would mean to kind of be on a Venusian clock. And we did that back in the day, like with a whole bunch of different planets. So,
Let me read this one article. This is from ibtimes.com. 11 Arab countries take on NASA, launch own space program. Led by the United Arab Emirates, which is at the forefront of Arab spaceflight. Which is at the forefront of Arab spaceflight. 11 Arab states have launched a regional space collaboration program to curb their reliance on NASA and expand limited Arab presence in outer space. The Arab Space Cooperation Group, ASCG, also aims to give the cash flush but technologically limited Arab world a place in the multi-billion-dollar global space industry. In addition, it will work towards the exchange of knowledge and encourage joint projects that will ultimately boost the Arab space industry. The ASCG includes the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Oman, Egypt, Algeria, Morocco, Jordan, Lebanon, Sudan, and Kuwait. I always find it interesting that they include Sudan. Today at the Global Space Congress in Abu Dhabi, we attend the signing of a charter to establish the first Arab body for space cooperation, bringing together 11 Arab states. The Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, Vice President and Prime Minister of UAE and ruler of Dubai. He said ASCG's first project is a satellite that Arab scientists will work on from here in the UAE. The satellite will be launched in 3 years' time. It will be built by engineers and scientists from all countries in the group, all 11 countries in the group. The satellite will monitor climate and the environment in the Arab nations and other parts of the globe, according to Dr. Mohammed Al Babi, Director General of the UAE Space Agency. Revealing more about the satellite, Dr. Al Babi said it will help environmental agencies, urban planners, and monitor the atmosphere for CO2. The involvement of 11 countries means that we have opened the doors for cooperation, and we are serious about it. It's great to bring Arabs together, work together, share knowledge, and design the future together. Space is all about cooperation. Why didn't you include Syria then? Sheikh Mohammed launched ASCG during the inaugural day of the ongoing Global Space Congress being held in Abu Dhabi until March 21st. During the opening of the Global Space Congress in Abu Dhabi, we attended the launch of the first Arab Space Coordination Group that includes 11 countries. The group's first project will be a space satellite built by Arab scientists in UAE, I believe. I personally believe in Arab talents, tweeted by Sheikh Mohammed. The satellite will be called 813 and was given this name to highlight an important year in Arab history. We called the new satellite 813 in reference to the date that marked the beginning of prosperity for the House of Wisdom in Baghdad under the reign of Al-Mamun.
So the year 813.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Okay. I'm gonna have to look that one up.
Mm-hmm. Well, you see, the Arabs are taking an initiative on it, so that's the question: where do we stand?
Very poignant question.
813 is when they started moving out of East Africa and going into Europe, conquering Europe. The North African actually Muslim took on the mantle of Islam and started spreading to India and to Europe. So it wasn't the Baghdadis that do it, it was the North Africans. But this is interesting. This is interesting because for one thing is that they left out two of the most important nations in that area that will help the program: Turkey and Iran. And the second,
Turkey's on Arabs, though, right?
Well, they're not Arab, but
they're part of the Muslim.
It's not with the Arab
OIC.
Islam is like their guide to doing everything. You know, everything is done under the name of Islam. These guys are like the second thing I was going to come out and say that what they are doing is repeating what has been done by every other space program. Even the Indians don't even bother to do that when they start their program, because it's already been done by the U.S., the Russians, the English, the Europeans, Chinese. Everybody has done that for creating rockets, for making rockets, just basic rockets that you can put a missile on to attack somebody. So you don't need that information. They can now do that without using rockets even from terrestrial, measuring. So I don't know exactly what they're trying to do with this. Somebody's trying to redirect their money into something that's not going to be worthwhile. While they could join up with Iran. Iran already had the rocket technology.
Well, I think it kind of speaks to what we were talking about earlier, is basically like the concept of like resto modding, if you will, or repurposing. If you have vehicles on the market and there's no real true wartime scenarios where all of these things are going to get fired off, why not buy them and then create a space program, and then just you bootstrap your space program off of these pre-built rockets that were had for pennies on the dollar, basically. And then from there, you start to get your private investment going, because now there's talk of that you got a space program. So then, I'm sorry, Mike, go ahead.
No, go right ahead. I'll go right after you.
Oh, I was going to say, and then from there, you take these newfound investment rounds, and then that's when you start to develop your proprietary space technology, like whatever kind of you know, next level propulsion engines and, you know, or these new design, you know, that, you know, rockets that might be reusable. Maybe they might be 3D printed like that one company is doing, where, you know, you're cutting the manufacturing costs by like a third, and you're cutting the production time down in half. You know, that you know, you got it's essentially just bootstrapping. You know, you take what's available and you repurpose it.
Yeah, but I don't think those are actually a lot of those rockets have a low ceiling, if that makes any sense. Their ability to actually hit or go beyond LEO, which is low Earth orbit, is very questionable, especially with their age. Um,
But
but
you
a
know,
lot of the
let's say
ballistic,
if you're
the
putting in
the, the
I'm sorry, go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
no, a lot of the ICBMs that you see from like North Korea, like those are hand built. That was designed by them
Hmm.
to actually do for that very purpose. Um, Same thing in Iran. In Iran and North Korea share a lot of research data anyway, so that's why it's so much cost efficient for both of them to do it. Um, the traditional military missiles that are being turned into rockets. Um, yeah, you're right about that to a certain extent. That takes a little bit of research and development too. Go ahead, complex.
Oh no, I'm listening to you. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just saying that some of those Scud missiles and things like that need to be uh, reevaluated. But I did see one, and I think we're going to talk about that on this Saturday for our Black Tech Talk again, because there has been Raspberry Pis used with Arduinos for launch mechanisms as well as controlling rockets, which is very interesting that you can do something like that.
Hmm.
I was actually going to mention that, but you got it before me. But
Well,
with the when you start out building rocket, it's a matter of scaling up, not 100%, but then as you scale up, with the change in technology, you're able to do more, and you're able to go into areas that you weren't previously, building for. It takes change. You will see that you need to make these changes, and those are the changes that you're going to make. Like you are building rockets for a missile, and then you build rockets for the distance, and then you say, well, we need a rocket that can actually take us, I don't know, into orbit, like you said, lower orbit. Then you build a rocket that will take you further. You build a vehicle that you drop your rocket, and then your vehicle continues. Like our space shuttle, for instance.
yeah, I mean, some of the well, I mean that I kind of talked about some ideas we have for 2020 with kind of spinning off a division to kind of deal with scaled rocketry and manufacturing components for it. And you know, there's based on the altitude that the vehicle is able to achieve at launch. You know, there's going to be other methods of then getting the payload higher up. So, so for example, if you have a vehicle that can take you up maybe, you know, 2,000 meters, say for example, and then you know the capsule pops off and then it deploys. It's going to deploy a vehicle that's going to have a relatively sizable helium balloon to then carry it further up. Okay, so there's going to be, depending on, again, the capabilities of the vehicle, you could retrofit it to do more than what it was initially designed for. I mean, because then at that point, all you're doing is you're just using the basic shape. But everything else, in terms of the electronics, the telemetry elements, the engine, and all that is upgraded to take the basic shape further up than what the original design was made for. That's why I was talking about the concept of resto modding. I'm sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna ask. Did you mean that the balloon would take the rocket up, or that the rocket would take the balloon up?
No, the balloon would take the, say, like the satellite or payload up. So the rocket
Okay,
takes it up
yeah.
a certain distance. The nose pops off, right? Then it deploys out the payload and a balloon, which then takes it up further, and then the rocket comes back down and self lands even.
So how does it inflate then?
Hmm?
At that height, how do you
You use
inflate
it,
it?
you could use a what they call a electronic ignition device, right, to trigger a helium canister to inflate the balloon to take it up once it pops out. It's all electronics. Some of the scaled rocketry that I've been following is all app controlled. It's all app monitored, but it's all computer controlled. So when it reaches a certain altitude, that's when it'll deploy out. So I've been go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say that I get that part, but to fill a balloon of that magnitude, and like we covered on Saturday, that can take quite some time. So you're talking about losing altitude rapidly at
No,
that height.
we're talking about maybe like a very small payload, like nothing
Okay.
big, because we're talking scaled. We're talking small rockets that have because these are all scaled based on the SpaceX rockets, right?
Okay.
So it's literally the same design scaled down, using like Estes solid fuel motors,
Hmm.
using the same motors. Um, but which you're just going to use it because you're going to use this small vehicle, right? Based on its design, it'll have the ability to go, quite a ways up, right? But you don't need to necessarily take the payload all the way up. You can take it up to a certain extent and then pop it out, and then have a balloon fill with helium and then take it up the rest of the way.
Yeah, because I know you can use these Dreamliners and these Airbus planes to actually deliver
Mm-hmm.
um, to accelerate it from at a certain height, and then at that point the rocket will detach and carry it the rest of the way up into Leo. So
Right. I mean, if you look at some of the military applications that they've used for commercial airlines, like retrofitting them for military use, you'd be amazed at what they could turn these things into.
mhm.
But I mean, just in
Yeah, that's
terms
something
of, but I mean, just in terms of like rocketry and like space development, like just to follow up on what you're talking about, I'm saying there's a multitude of ways to get things up into the sky, and it doesn't necessarily require like the latest greatest, rocket. Not necessarily.
yeah, some of these parts can be bought off of Amazon and Alibaba.
Hmm. Yep.
That's what we were looking at. So that's definitely something I think we should bring up again on Saturday.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's good to see the Arabs actually doing something. They're actually taking some kind of initiative for themselves. Everybody, we've been talking about this for a minute, and I keep reiterating that 1 in every 3 stars is going to be a space star. The Arabs see the writing on the wall. That
Dude, where are they gonna put their money? Right. Like, where are they gonna put their money?
buried in the sand, I guess.
That's not gonna do it any good.
Maybe have some more Formula E racing or something.
Well, okay, I wouldn't be mad at that. But I mean,
Oh well,
like,
I bet you would be.
but I mean, no. In all seriousness, man, if you've got money, like, what space is the place, man. Like that. Where else are you? Where else are you gonna put your money right about now?
Well, they're kind of late to the game too, right? I mean, you factor in that the Soviets and the Americans were going into space during the '60s, right? So they're what 40? They're 50 years late, 55 years late.
Well, they
Oh,
they always work on the principle that the U.S. is going to lead the way, and they are going to be included. And nobody looked at the what happens to cultures and powerful countries. You know, you can look back at history and see that eventually countries fail, and these people never looked at it as though they were going to fail. You know, there was they never put themselves in the position that they would when something goes wrong that they can actually take up the mantle and go it alone. They always depended on somebody else to carry it, and they would follow and be included.
So you're saying they ride other people's coattails?
Exactly what they. That's exactly what they did. I mean, it's some people like Africa. Africa is forced in a position where they had to do something. But the Arabs, in the case, was they allow themselves to stay in that position. When the U.S. said we're going to use the dollar to trade oil, the Arabs found themselves swimming in money. They invested the money in the U.S. They didn't go out and say, okay, let's start reclaiming the desert and planting food in Saudi Arabia or wherever the countries that they had all this money. They didn't build an infrastructure based on food production and then technology. You know, they hired Americans, they hired people from everywhere to come there and bring their technology in and operate it for them. Now is the time that they say, well, shoot, China is doing this, Russia is doing this, America is falling behind. We got to start doing it. But right now, like you said, Mike, it's a little bit late, but they're still doing it anyway. So they have to start somewhere. About time that they start.
Mm. Yeah, well, I think we have to find a place to start too. I don't like the idea of the Johnny come lately attitude that most Black Americans have. You know, I'll get to it when I get to it. We'll figure out when we cross that bridge. You know, that sort of mentality is exactly what's setting people up for failure. And then they turn back around and point the finger somewhere else.
Oh
So
boy.
at least right now we can somewhat have these conversations and then use it as a jump off point to determine um, where we can go from here.
Well, the bottom line is this, man. It's like either you're going to keep up or you're going to fall behind, right? There's no like middle ground really. And if I'm going to keep harping on this shit, but if we haven't quite figured out the dating thing, then God, man, best of luck to us. Because that seems to be just, I don't know. Like I'm saying, man, we're sitting here talking about this stuff, as if it's, well, to us, this is it's what's really going on in the world. And then you have the problems of Black America, and they are all their own, right? Not necessarily shared with everyone else. And you can see this because everyone else has varying levels and degrees of progressions and movements that they're making in terms of how they're going to incorporate, a lot of this fourth industrial based technologies into their environments. And that's not even, we have the discussions. I mean, that's basically what this whole entire channel is about. But, it's not had just in a general sense. What's had in a general sense, God, man, it's shit that I just really can't give much time and attention to.
Well, if you look at the U.S. say in 1914, before World War One, and even 1929, 1930, before World War Two, it would appear as though the U.S. was lagging the rest of the world, you know, everybody was going ahead but us. And when we joined into the war, it would appear that almost like the U.S. was ready for it overnight. That's because in the background, a lot of people were working and talking and discussing these things. Well, if we get into war, what we're going to need? How are we going to prosecute this war if we get in? And that those conversations weren't being held in the public. Like we are having this conversation about business and the current business atmosphere. Those conversations weren't held in the public like we have it now. They were held behind closed doors by groups of people who had money, who were planning on making more money. You know, so this thing might not turn out as bad as we are seeing it right now. It might turn out better than we expect it to be, but still, it's a healthy discussion. And from both sides, one guy is trying to get his woman in line, and the other guy is trying to get his money in line. And if the two of them can get on the same page, either pretty close together, and if we put time on it, in a couple of years difference, one line up with the other a couple of years, we can still work this thing out.
All right. I guess that's a good closing thought right there. I want to thank you all for joining us, and we will be back